for the lab of today, you have the part with the Crawford notation, such that between any two tables you can have multiple relationships, such that firstly you have a customer who can have one credit check. So this is based on one of them, okay, one-to-one relationship between a credit which belongs to a bank. Then you've got an order as well as you've got the payment, such that for one order you can choose from multiple ways of paying, whether it's cash or credit, or whether you want to have a transfer, let's say it's a PayPal transfer. Then you also have between a product and an order, what you have is that one order contains multiple products, as well as a product is part of multiple orders. Okay, so whenever you have this kind of many-to-many relationships, then you need to add another table in between, like this one includes. So it will be like order includes product, such that you will have to have a foreign key of both order as well as the product, and you will have associated date, as well as you can add the quantities such that you have how many products were bought. Then you see here that when you want to link two tables, you can have a one-to-one relationship. It's like you as a person, you have just one address which is associated on your ID card. Then you have one-to-many, okay, in this way. So you have one instance of your object, okay. Let's say you as a person, you have multiple cards, okay? Because you can have debit card, credit card, so it can be in this way. Then you can add it in the other way around, so it's simply switching and you have here many, and over here you can have this one is 0 or n, this is at least 1. Then this one is mandatory to have one or more. As you can see, you have this line, so you start from 1 until infinity. Then you can have one and only one, such that it's unique. So you have, let's say, the ID card, which for you is unique. And you have one and only one instance of it, as well as you can have 0 or 1, such that it can exist or not. So let's say regarding the credit card, it can exist or not for you. Okay. And also you have 0 or many, okay, in this way. So let's see. Inside the company, you have multiple employees. Okay. So this is the way when to one company you associate one or more employees. Then you will have this kind of relationship where you have many to many instances, such that here when you have one instance to many, you don't need to add an intermediate table. But when having this kind of relationship with many to many, you need to add here a table in between. And as you can see, you have employees. So one employee can work in 0 or multiple projects, as well as a project, okay, contains, so it has at part multiple employees. So you will have within a project, you need to have at least one, okay, so start from 1 to infinity of employees, okay, as well as okay, this kind of employee can work or not within a project. So let's think of an accountant. Okay, they will just be employed, okay, and you have them as part of your company. What you will have to do here as an activity is to draw this whole diagram, such that you will need to identify tables, and then which would be the columns. So first of all, you need to search for all the nouns which you've got, and then you link the instances one with another. So here you have a company, and this company is from the medical industry. And now you want to create for it exactly the data model such that you have a health insurance company, okay, and you want to manage all the claims regarding health. And here you want to store your patient information. Okay, so this patient information, this is the table. Then you want to have the provider. Okay, so this will be a doctor. Then you want to find out which are the patient visits. Okay, so you have another patient visit between a patient and a doctor because you can have multiple visits. Okay, and for it, you see that also the doctors provide a prescription which contains multiple drugs. And here you've got the attributes such that the patient has a name, an address, a phone, an email, and you also want to know which is the patient's primary doctor. So it will be the family doctor, in fact. And this one will be a foreign key. And you also have for him this insurance ID number, okay, as well as the insurance company. And for it, for a doctor, you want to find out which is his or specialty, as well as you have also the hospitals to which they are affiliated, such that for one doctor you can have multiple hospitals as they usually work to public inside within public hospitals as well as private hospitals. And for those hospitals, you have as attributes the phone, the address. Okay, you can add everything here, email address. Okay, so you should have how to contact the hospital. Then for the prescription, it also needs to be tracked. Okay, because this one, when going to the pharmacy, it will be found. And you can also determine this eligibility of your information. And within it, you have several drugs which are prescribed. And what you should do is that also the patient has some interdictions and you shouldn't have any conflicts between the other prescriptions. So you should have some side effects, okay, which you should avoid. Then for the drug, you have as attribute the name, you have the purpose used, as well as side effects. Maybe when being ill of another illness, okay, another disease, you should not administrate this kind of drug. Then within it, you also want to see the trends, so which would be the illnesses which were found lately, or the side effects which are the most common, and you should find out all of these trends. So first of all, you identify the entities. Okay, so you have the big tables such as patient, okay, and you also need to find out the attributes. You have the primary keys, like for patient, you've got patient ID, you've got a name, an address, phone, email, and also you have the insurance ID. Don't forget that you have associated to it. Okay, and this is how you can list them. So this one with the hashtag is the primary key, and then with the star, you've got all the other fields. What you can do here is that for this insurance ID, it can be a foreign key, and then to have your insurance created on a certain date, and it will belong to a certain company. Okay, but here can be just the state, so this is why it was added here. Okay, it may exist or not a private one. Then at step 2, you need to find out how you link each and every table. So it means that you link the tables using all these kind of relationships, whether it's a one-to-one relationship, one-to-many, okay, or many. This is the opposite of it. Okay, here you should have at least one and many. You have just one and only one for unicity. 0 or 1 such that or 0 and infinity is multiple, as in the case with employee and being part of a project or not. And related to it, you also have your project. So your project consists here of a digital TV, database application. And for it, what you will have to do is to do the analysis. You have design, implementation, and writing all the queries, such that here for this TV cable company, you want to have such, okay, for every table, like here you have the exchange rate, you have here as a value, which would be it, okay, for your currency. Then you have your types of subscription, whether or not it is optional. Then you have the price, you have the type, you've got description. You've also got the content of your subscription, okay, which can be changed time after time, updated every year. Then you also have your counties with the county name. And you've got the location with the location name, as well as you've got your postcode. Then for your subscription, you have the creation date, you have the expiry date, you have this subscription for a certain address. So this address can be exactly even a part of the city because it can change even from one country to another. Then you also have the person. So a person has a first name, a last name. You've got a personal numerical number, the CNP. Okay, you've got the postcode, the address where the person lives, as well as the email. And for it, you have the exchange rate. It doesn't depend on anything. This you get from the national bank of that country. Then for a person, you see that a person lives at a certain place. So here the person will have the foreign key with location. Then for a subscription, I will have a foreign key for the person because this is like when I want to create a new one, I take his ID. So this one will have the personal numerical number of that person. Then also that subscription belongs to a certain place, so city by city, as well as you have the content of your subscription. So the content of the subscription needs to have the foreign key, which is the ID of your subscription. And then it also has as foreign key the type of your subscription. Then you have all these locations which are placed in a county, meaning that these locations will have the county as being the foreign key. Okay, so don't forget that every table has a primary key, and as in OOP, so in the object-oriented class, you start from the most isolated classes like these ones, okay, which do not contain a foreign key, and then you add them one by one such that you can reference the other tables. Okay, such that for the exchange rate, this is for euro and lei, and you will have between 3 and 6 digits. So you have 3 because you also have the float point. Okay, you have at least 1 digit before the comma. And this one will be mandatory because you need to know it in order to compute it. Then you've got the type of subscription, which will have the type as being your voucher. So it will be, you can write it as being an ASCII. Okay, you have 7 characters of 255, let's say, is maximum. And you've also got the price that it should have. Then you have the option as having a value between so or yes or no. You've got description, again a varchar, and you need to say that you have some columns which are mandatory and not. Okay, so you will have that one with required. Okay. Then for your county, you have again it as being a varchar 2, and it will also be unique. Okay, so you cannot add the same county name twice. Then you've got your location. Again, it's a varchar. You've got a postal code, so it's again a varchar. Then you also don't want to have two places with the same name as well as the same postcode. Okay, so both of them will be together unique. So you cannot assign a postcode, two postcodes to one place. Then you will have your person. A person has an email, you have the address, you have the name, first name and last name, as well as you've got your CNP, and you will have some values within which you find your personal numerical number. Then you have, based on the creation date, starting from the beginning, so you can have several years, and you also add the address. Then you think like this, that you shouldn't have two subscriptions which belong to the same location as well as address, okay, using the same date, and also none using the same end date. Okay. As well as you've got the creation date, which is mandatory to be before the expiry date. Okay. As well as you shouldn't have any other subscription for the same address at the same place, which should overlap. Then for the content of your subscription, you've got your subscription as well as the type, which are mandatory. And for each subscription, you have the type, which appears just once. Okay, so every subscription has just one service type. Okay, so whether it's just TV, whether it's TV, internet, and phone. Okay. Then for it, you see that you will have several sets. Like for the postcode and your location, altogether they are unique. You cannot assign several postcodes for one street and address placed on some street. Then you have the address, the creation date and place, which altogether are unique. So here you have all the unicity pairs, okay? As well as you've got the address with the expiry date and location, okay, for your subscription. It should also appear just once. Your subscription and the type for it, okay, it should remain just one. You shouldn't change it. Or if else you have another contract, okay, for it. And then you've also got this exchange rate, okay, which just has a value between 3 and 6 digits, okay. And you should be able to compute it so that you have a total value according to the amount. Then for it, you also have the type of subscription, such that based on the attributes, you have the type of subscription, you have the name of the service. Okay, so this is when you take one by one the table and you say which is the type and whether or not combining the keys they are unique. Let's see, here you take table by table and you have this one with your location and your postcode. It is unique, but when you have the postcode and your county, it will not be unique because on the same street you will have several numbers and they will still have the same postcode. As well as you take it for person, so which would be the type, so the primary key is a natural number until your total maximum number. You've got the address, okay, of thy varchar, then your CNP, postcode, okay, email address, as well as you've got the name and last name, as well as you've got the location, which exists inside persons, but you take it from location, so it will be a foreign key. Then you need to find out which would be the pairs which combined would be unique. Okay. And okay. you also have the CNP and the email address, which are part of your key, and you can identify according to them. So this is like when you have your forgotten password, okay, and being unique, you can search according to them. You have your subscriptions, and you have for one address and creation date and location to be unique, a unique pair, as well as you've got the address, expiry date, and location as also being a unique pair. So we cannot have several existence for it. So you have them here with address, creation date, and location. And you define it as being the Cartesian product between a varchar, you've got the date, the creation date, and location. And the same is valid for the expiry date. Also, you've got the varchar for the address, expiry date, and location for it. Then when having the creation date, you have the creation date which needs to be less than the expiry date. Okay? And you don't want two subscriptions to be connected to the same address at the same location. You have another constraint. Then for your subscriptions, you also want each subscription to have just one. Okay, that's optional, but it's not optional, the service, as well as you've got the content, okay, of your subscription. You will have a set of pairs, you have the subscription and the type of your subscription. Right. Also, whether you have your location associated to the person, what will result is not only that location, so it is not the same thing. Because when combining them, this person can also have your CNP, okay, located at a different place, and you can do your subscription for a totally different place. So these locations will not, it isn't mandatory to be the same. Then you have table by table with exchange rate, which would be the value for it. So you would have the column with exchange rate. You've got the type of subscriptions based on the primary key. Then you've got type, price, whether it's optional, and your description. And lower, you've got the types for it. You've got the county based on county name. You've got the location, so every table has your primary key. Then you've got location, county, which is in fact, you need to use the foreign key for it, as well as you've got the postcode. Then for persons, you've got again the ID within the table. You have a first name, a last name, a personal American number, an email, address, location, postcode. Then for your subscription, again, the primary key, your subscription, the person, which is a foreign key, you've got a creation date, expiry date, you've got the address and location, where location is also a foreign key. Then you've got the content of your subscription, where you see here that you have a subscription and the type for it. Then you also have some non-relational constraints. So you have this one with 332. It will be this one, right? So according to which each subscription should have one mandatory service time. Okay, so you can add all these constraints and you can place them here as remembering them and then to enforce them when creating your database. And what you will have to do is to select a certain project theme. So you can select absolutely anything and you can work in pairs of two or alone. If you get along with someone from electronics, you can also work with that person. And what you need to do is to add your first name, your last name, the group number. So you can add both groups if you want to work together, and which would be the theme of your project.